Welcome to another episode that sounds reasonable. I am your host, Dr. Brad, and I am joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim and Tracy. We're all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts, a pervasive belief in a divine skydad, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after each episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We'll now move on to our science news segment, and remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. Well, when you reach my age, and perhaps younger, you dream about your youth from time to time and wish you could go back to those younger days. Well, we are now one step closer to making this come true. The story I'm going to relay today comes from Nature News, December 2nd, 2020, and was authored by Heidi Ledford. And the title of the article is Reversal of Biological Clock Restores Vision in Old Mice. Now, researchers have restored vision in old mice and in mice with damaged retinal nerves by resetting some of the thousands of chemical marks that accumulate on DNA as cells age. The work, published on the 2nd of December in Nature, suggests a new approach to reversing age-related decline by reprogramming some cells to a quote-unquote younger state in which they are better able to repair or replace damaged tissue. Now, this has been a hypothesis about aging for a long time, simply the inability to repair damaged tissues. And it looks like that is going to be borne out from this work, at least in part. Now, it is a major landmark, says Juan Carlos Belmonte, a developmental biologist at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies at La Jolla, California, who was not involved personally in the study. These results clearly show that tissue regeneration in mammals can be enhanced. But researchers also caution that the work has so far been carried out only in mice, and it remains to be seen whether the approach will translate to people or to other tissues and organs that are ravaged by time. Subsection entitled Visionary Approach. Aging affects the body in a myriad of ways, among them adding, removing, or altering chemical groups, such as methyl groups on DNA. These so-called epigenetic changes accumulate as a person ages, and some researchers have proposed tracking the changes as a way of calibrating a molecular clock to measure biological age. An assessment that takes into account biological wear and tear and can differ from chronological age. That has raised the possibility that epigenetic changes contribute to the effects of aging. We set out with a question. If epigenetic changes are a driver of aging, can you reset the epigenome says David Sinclair, a geneticist at Harvard Medical School and a co-author of the Nature study. That is, can you reverse the clock? There were suggestions that the approach could work. In 2016, Belmonte and his colleagues reported the effects of expressing 4 genes in mice genetically engineered to age more rapidly than normal. It was already known that triggering these genes could cause cells to lose their developmental identity. The features that make, for example, a skin cell look and behave like a skin cell and revert to a stem cell-like state. But rather than turn the genes on and leave them that way, Belmonte's team turned them on for only a few days, then switched them off again in the hope of reverting cells to a younger state without erasing their identity. The result was mice that aged more slowly and had a pattern of epigenetic marks indicative of younger animals. But the technique had disadvantages. Previous work had shown that if the genes are present in extra copies or expressed for too long, some mice will develop tumors. Now, another subsection entitled Genetic Switch. In Sinclair's lab, geneticist Wang Chang Lu looked for a safer way to rejuvenate cells. He dropped one of the 4 genes used by Belmonte's team, one that is associated with cancer, and crammed the remaining 3 genes into a virus that could shuttle them into cells. He also included a switch that would allow him to turn the genes on by giving mice water spiked with a particular drug. Withholding the drug would switch the genes back off again. Now, because mammals lose the ability to regenerate components of the central nervous system early in development, Lu and his colleagues decided to test their approach there. They picked the eye's retinal nerves. They first injected the virus into the eye to see if the expression of the 3 genes would allow mice to regenerate injured nerves, something that no treatment had yet been shown to do. Lu remembers the first time that he saw a nerve regenerating from injured eye cells. It was like a jellyfish growing out through the injury site, he says. It was breathtaking. The team went on to show that its system improved visual acuity in mice with age-related vision loss or with increased pressure inside the eye, a hallmark of the disease glaucoma. The approach also reset epigenetic patterns to a more youthful state in mice and in human cells grown in the laboratory. It is still unclear how cells preserve a memory of more youthful epigenetic states, says Sinclair, but he and his colleagues are trying to find out. Now, the next subsection is entitled Leap to the Clinic, which of course is what everyone is hoping to see soon. Especially me. No, just kidding. In the meantime, Harvard has licensed the technology to Boston company Life Biosciences, which Sinclair says is carrying out preclinical safety assessments with a view to developing it for use in people. It would be an innovative approach to treat vision loss, says Bonta Droska, director of the Institute of Molecular and Clinical Ophthalmology in Basel, Switzerland, but will probably need considerable refinement before it can be deployed safely in humans, he adds. The history of aging research is littered with unfulfilled promises of potential fountains of youth that failed to make the leap to humans. More than a decade ago, Sinclair caused a stir by suggesting that compounds, including one found in red wine, that activate proteins called sirtuins, could boost longevity. Although he and others continue to study the links between sirtuins and aging that were originally observed in yeast, the notion that such compounds can be used to lengthen human lifespan has not yet been borne out and has become controversial. So, darn it, there goes my red wine stocks down the tubes.
We can keep researching though, right?
Exactly.
I'm just going to keep looking into that.
Keep sampling.
Ultimately, the test will be when other labs try to reproduce the reprogramming work. and try the approach in other organs affected by aging, such as the heart, lungs, and kidneys, says Judith Campisi, a cell biologist at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging in Novato, California. Those data should emerge swiftly, she predicts. There are many labs now who are working on this whole concept of reprogramming, says Campisi. We should be hopeful, but like everything else, it needs to be repeated and it needs to be extended. So what do you think, guys? Are we going to eventually get to live forever?
Maybe. I think this is really excellent news, especially for those mice.
Well, being able to regenerate nerves, regardless of whether this would be applicable to aging, is huge.
Sure.
That's absolutely huge.
Right. That's what I was thinking. If you do something to restore lost or damaged neurons, that would be amazing. Dementia, Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
Those things. So big, just right there, being able to restore damaged organs, even if it's just at that level where you're able to restore damaged organs, that would be just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been working on these types of things for quite some time. I think UNMC used to have a pretty good aging research lab there, if I recall. I don't know if those folks are still there working on that type of research now or not, but it's been a while since I've kept track of what all they've been doing at UNMC. But they used to have a pretty good lab for it, but I don't know if they're still there.
Yeah, I don't either. I wouldn't be surprised if they are.
I saw whenever I talk about this topic, I have to bring this up because I'm always interested to see if people have really thought about this. If we could stop aging, do you have any idea what the average age of the population would become if we could literally, quote unquote, become immortal? Do you have any idea what the average age would become?
I do, because I think I remember us talking about that in one of our classes. Wasn't it the average, was it 600, whatever the average chance of you having an accident?
That's correct. Yeah. So you would think, well, there wouldn't be an average age. We'd all be living as long as we want. But as it turns out, the actuarial tables from insurance companies tell us that the average age would become 600, because that's the chances of having a fatal accident. So even though we would have all of this wonderful technology, we'd still only have an average age, quote unquote, only an average age of 600. But yeah, that's rather incredible that people have actually thought about it.
Yeah.
I may have to piggyback next week with the effects of oxygen on the telomeres. May have to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's the other.
Week.
Yeah, that of course is the other major marker for aging, is telomere length. At least as far as we know at this point. Yeah. So yeah, that would be a great follow-up. And Tim, I'm very impressed that you remembered my lecture material way back then. That's pretty.
Yes, that's been a few years ago. I do remember that. Yes.
You have to change your grade to A+++.
All right. I'll submit that change of grade form.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap up our science news segment. So we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
But how can I hide you without an outline? got no alibi. It's a rebel's fight without an alibi. Took my innocence without an alibi.
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on December 6th, 2020. Question: could America become a fascist nation? Perhaps we should start with a definition of fascism. So fascism is defined as a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. So that's quite a lengthy definition to take in, but I have to admit, at least speaking for myself, that until the past year or two, I would have not thought basically any of these things possible in the United States. However, Trump and his ilk have changed my mind. So Tim, you have the story. So how close are we to fascism in the United States?
Well, we were, I think, just on the brink. Fortunately, the majority has spoken. I think we've hopefully at least stopped it for now. And thanks for the definition and introduction there, Dr. Brad. So my segment today comes from The Guardian, written by Charles Kaiser, titled Strongmen Review, A Chilling History of One Nation No Longer Under Trump. This terrific history of strongmen since Mussolini makes it clear that despite a horrific pandemic and massive economic disruption, the ordinary democratic Americans have more to be thankful for this holiday season than ever before. Comparing the gruesome granular details of reigns of Mussolini, Franco, Hitler, Gaddafi, Pinochet, Mobutu, Berlusconi, and others to the acts and aspirations of Donald Trump, New York University professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat makes a powerful argument that on the scary road to fascism, America came perilously close to the point of no return. Almost everything Trump has done has come straight from the authoritarian playbook. Every dictator, for example, has built on the accomplishments of his predecessors. Just as Hitler watched Mussolini's actions carefully, Ben-Ghiat writes, so did Gaddafi learn from Lieutenant Colonel Jamal Abdul Nasser's 1952 overthrow of the monarchy of Egypt. Then in the 1980s and 90s, Ronald Reagan and Newt Gingrich served as models for Europeans looking for, quote, a more radical form of conservatism. Gingrich's 1994 contract with America was echoed a year later by the Front National with its contract for France with the French. And Berlusconi's contract with Italians followed 6 years later. In Egypt, Nasser hired former Nazi propagandists for their expertise in anti-Semitic messaging. In Zaire in 1965, Mobutu Sese Sesko's media handlers re-imaged Lenin's Riefenstahl's image of Hitler descending from the sky by opening the television news each night with a picture of the dictator's face hovering up in the clouds. The parallels between Trump and his role models are endless, Ben-Ghiat writes. Quote, watching Trump retweet neo-Nazi propaganda, call for the imprisonment of Hillary Clinton, and lead his followers in loyalty oaths at rallies seemed all too familiar, and it filled her with dread. Before the Putin-Trump bromance, there was Putin and Berlusconi grinning at each other from Zavadovo to Sardinia. The way Trump talked about Mexicans was hardly different from Hitler's words about the Jews or Berlusconi's about Africans. The Italian media mogul and prime minister was himself just a pale imitation of Mussolini. In the pre-war period, he was responsible for deaths of 700,000 Libyans, Eritreans, Somalians, and Ethiopians. Every authoritarian regime has seen crucial alliances between big business and the dictator, from Putin and his oligarchs to Hitler and the German industrialists and Trump and the Wall Street elite. The German businessman Ernst von Hoffenstiegel, I think, introduced a, quote, cleaned up Hitler to the money-eyed social circles that mattered in Germany. Just as Blackstone chief executive Steven Schwarzman helped legitimize Trump with his tens of millions in campaign contributions to him and the Republican allies. Like all role models, Ben-Ghiat sees in Trump a, quote, drive to control, exploit everyone and everything for personal gain. The men, women, and children he governs have value in his eyes only insofar as they fight his enemies and adulate him publicly. Propaganda lets him monopolize the nation's attention, and virility comes into play as he poses as the ideal take-charge man. The U.S. has done so much to promote authoritarianism abroad during the last 100 years. It's actually surprising it took so long before we had to confront it at home. When Mussolini desperately needed international legitimacy and economic aid in 1926, it was a fascist propagandist and J.P. Morgan partner, Thomas Lamont, who rescued him, brokering a $100 million U.S. government loan. 50 years later, Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger told CIA Director Richard Helms to make Chile's, quote, economy scream. So General Augusto Pinochet could overthrow the socialist Salvador Allende. Kissinger and William F. Buckley became fervent Pinochet apologists, even as thousands were tortured and disappeared. In our own time, Trump has never criticized Putin for poisoning his enemies or even putting bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. He has privately boasted about saving the skin of Mohammed bin Salman after the CIA concluded that the Saudi prince had ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. I'm sorry.
Khashoggi.
Oh, Khashoggi, thank you. The columnist for the Washington Post. Ben-Ghiat, the forced separation of nearly 70,000 children from their parents at the Mexican border brings Trump's practices in line with states like Hitler's Germany and Pinochet's Chile, where children were taken from Jewish, leftist, and indigenous parents to be raised by more, quote, appropriate individuals. Citing freezing temperatures, 24-hour lights, and lack of hygiene and medical care, Dr. Dolly Lucio Severe compared conditions in camps in Texas to those of torture facilities. We can be grateful that the associated criminals and white supremacists Trump chose to fill so many of his highest positions were too incompetent to keep this descent into fascism going any longer. But most of all, we owe one giant thanks to 80 million decent Americans who voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It is because of their courage and determination that our badly corroded and still functioning democratic apparatus has proved able to survive. As Ruth Ben-Ghiat makes all too clear, if we had gone any deeper into this four-year tunnel of doom, none might have escaped it. Dr. Brad and Tracy, I think this is a spot-on analysis of where Trump was taking the country. So what do you two think?
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well,
You know, I don't know if you saw the latest concerning the separated children, but it turns out that the Trump administration had phone numbers and addresses of the parents that they just now released. I mean, in other words, we could have rejoined, parents and children, a year or two ago. Just unbelievable cruelty, and I, you know, I really, really hope somehow, some way, that Trump, Stephen Miller in particular, are tried at the Hague for crimes against humanity. I mean, this is
Absolutely.
nothing short of what they did in concentration camps. I was just rewatching Schindler's List the other night,
Mm.
and there are the parents, in the yard of the concentration camp, and the truckloads of their children drive past them. You remember that scene?
Yep.
If you've seen that movie, and I could not help but think that this had to be what those parents were feeling, as well.
And
Right.
yeah, and it's just horrific. And it's not like these were people that were trying to sneak into the country. They were coming through a border crossing. They were trying to come in, to seek
Legit.
asylum.
Yeah.
Yeah, legitimately. They were, trying to do what was right. And it's just, it's just unimaginable that.
It's horrible. It's sickening, and it's frustrating, and
What
all
no
of
one
that.
what no one that has been a proponent of this has asked either Trump or themselves is, what if the individuals trying to escape tyranny were from Canada, our northern border?
Right.
Right.
Would Trump be trying to put up a wall between
Yeah.
Canada and the U.S.? I guarantee you not,
What if-
because of
yeah.
course those people coming from the north would be of the right skin color.
Of course.
Yeah. What if they were white? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know it is.
So I tell you what, nothing gets my blood boiling quicker than this particular issue. I just can't imagine the anguish that has gone on, and of course these children are already damaged for life. I mean, some of them will be able to return to normal eventually, but the majority won't.
And
Go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, and the fear is that some of those parents have been killed. I mean, they'll be sent back and may
Sure,
have been killed.
That's why they were leaving in the first place. I mean, it was a choice between turn your kids over to the gangs, or escape,
Right.
or be killed.
Right.
Well, those were the three options, and so I always sit there and whenever someone tries to argue with me, I go, well, what in the hell would you do?
Yeah.
Okay, what would you do in that situation?
Exactly
So,
Right.
well, anyway, I mean, yeah. I wish I had more power to solve this issue or prosecute it.
It seems so common sense that you just can't, it just doesn't make sense. And it's hard, it's disheartening that there are so many people that would just fall right in line with that.
Yeah.
They just think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're just overrun with immigrants.
Yeah. Taking all your jobs away.
Yeah, taking all your jobs. Pulling weeds. And,
Right. Yeah. Picking your fruit.
And harvesting almonds.
Right. You know what? If our meat supply would be non-existent.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't for that labor.
Yeah, absolutely.
we would not have any beef and pork and chicken in the stores.
Of course,
Right.
the governor of South Dakota is doing her best to cut down on the meat supply by making sure that the workers are in unsafe environments and dying off.
Right. Yeah. It's just too depressing to talk about.
It really is. It really is. Come
But
on.
Donald Trump isn't going to be our president anymore, so
Yes,
that's a good thing.
Let's hope he ends up in prison. So,
we're down to what, 45 days now, I believe. So hopefully nothing drastic happens between now and then. Although he's doing his best to shake up the Pentagon, but
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what the motive is there quite yet. But anyway, that'll be a topic for another day. Well, Tim, thanks so much for that story, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby? Why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby? Why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby? Why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby? Why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable. When I think of Mike Flynn, former national security advisor who admitted to multiple counts of lying to the FBI, but who was recently the recipient of a presidential pardon, I think of an individual who has desecrated his military oath and his oath to the Constitution. Now, Flynn is asking the president to declare martial law and redo the national election. Tracy has the story. So Tracy, please fill us in.
Sure thing. The following story is from the HuffPost, dated December 2nd, authored by David Moy, and is entitled, Michael Flynn Wants Trump to Declare Martial Law and Redo the Election. Michael Flynn, President Donald Trump's former national security advisor, who was pardoned by the president last week for lying during the Russia investigation, wants Trump to declare martial law and temporarily suspend the Constitution until a new election is held. Flynn, who had been awaiting sentencing for lying to the FBI about his Russian contacts before Trump's pardon on Tuesday, retweeted a news release from a right-wing Ohio group called We the People Convention, asking the president to declare martial law so troops can supervise a do-over of the 2020 election. Flynn tagged many conservative celebs in his post and added, "Freedom never kneels except for God." The news release cites massive planned illegal election fraud carried out by Democrats. Trump lost the election handedly to President-elect Joe Biden, and no widespread fraud has been found. If the election, if the president doesn't declare martial law, the statement retweeted by Flynn warns, we will also have no other choice but to take matters into our own hands and defend our rights on our own. A retired Army general's support for the military takeover of US government shocked many people on Twitter. Now, as you might imagine, this set off a Twitter storm. I'm going to read just a few of the thousands of responses that were posted. The first one, it's not just Flynn. Retired General Thomas McIlvaine
Macaroni.
What he said. A familiar face to Fox viewers has also called on Trump to declare martial law, suspend habeas corpus, institute military tribunals, and suspend the Electoral College. Number 2, Trump found his General Scott. Fortunately, this yo-yo is no longer an active military officer. We may not be so lucky in the future if this stuff doesn't stop.
Just to jump in,
Yeah.
have you ever seen the movie Remo Williams?
No.
Yeah.
General Scott was the buffoon that was on the payroll of a major military arms manufacturer. So that's the reference there. So,
Okay.
so for our audience.
Gotcha. Next one, Trump returning to being a crackpot on social media who is mostly ignored and ridiculed would truly be nature healing. Okay, next one, Biden won 306 electoral votes. He won by around 7 million votes nationally. The allegations the president makes about irregularities, fraud are unsubstantiated and a lie. It's absolutely nuts that 1 month after the election, Trump has still not conceded. The last one second. Trump and Barr had a contentious meeting Tuesday after the Attorney General told the AP the Justice Department uncovered no evidence of fraud that would change the election outcome, which led Trump to erupt. It was angry, but a person familiar says Trump wasn't screaming.
Well, at least he wasn't screaming.
Right? He was just angry. Angry without screams. Angry sans screaming.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean that's really worrisome though. You can at this point understand why Trump would do this stuff.
Right.
But to have retired generals jumping in saying we should also declare martial law, that's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Maybe that was part of the deal. I'll pardon you, but here's what you got to say. Here's what you got to do for me.
Of course, yeah, right. Yeah, of course, that would be true for Flynn, but not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, that's true. Right.
Why do presidents have the ability to pardon people? I mean, why was that given to them to begin with?
That's got an interesting history. I would try to relay it, but I would do it incorrectly. But I just heard it, and that's why I'm not going to try to relay it, because I haven't actually read it and studied it. I heard it on. I'm an avid watcher of Morning Joe every weekday, and they had somebody on there that explained that, why that's so. So for our listeners and audience, go back and view this past week's Morning Joe episodes. If I remember right, it was Thursday, but if it's not there, don't throw tomatoes at my house. Okay. So,
yeah.
But yeah, they went into a good description of it. But I don't want to try to recall it off the top of my head what all they said about that. But there were some very good reasons actually they gave for the president having this power.
Okay.
Yeah, but
it seems like it's something that there must have, well, I assume there's really good reasons, because it seems like it's something that would be left to the judiciary to have that ability.
Right. Now that was actually, now that you brought that up, that was actually one of the arguments one of the panelists brought up, is that let's at least make the judiciary have to be a part of this process, as opposed to the president just with a wave of his magic wand getting to pardon somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
so
This,
yeah. So that'd be
this
that'd
is a
be
good
something I
example.
definitely be for. But yeah, that that has been, as you might guess, a topic of discussion, especially when Trump is talking about pardoning his own children and himself.
Right. Yeah. Right. So this would be
Oh,
a
well,
good example. Good
yeah,
example for
I committed all these crimes, but I hereby declare myself not guilty by pardoning.
I hereby pardon me.
I pardon I.
Or not, yes.
What?
Maybe he's a fan of the group Incubus. Yeah, pardon me. Yeah.
Pardon me.
Well, he would never apologize.
So I think it was oh shoot, who was I can't think of the guy's name now. He used to be the anchor for CBS Evening News.
Matt Lauer?
No.
No.
Well, anyway, he had a meme that's been going around the internet that says, "Have you noticed the White House has become much more polite these days? Everyone's going around saying, 'Pardon me.'"
Yeah. That's great.
Oh, that's good. I haven't seen that.
Oh my! Let's see, was it Mike Wallace? It might have.
Could
Well,
be.
I can't think of exactly who it was, but anyway, that was hilarious.
That's good. That's really good.
All right. Well, Tracy, thanks so much for that story, and we'll be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know? And don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? And don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? And you were fool's gold. Yes, I did.
And we're back with our crazy story of the week. Leave it to some interesting pastors to give us our crazy story of the week. Tim has found some treasures. So, Tim, tell us all about it.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Brad. So I have two kind of short crazy stories of the week, and we're going to watch a couple of video clips on these. But our first crazy story comes to us from The Dead State, written by Sky Palma, titled "Christian Pasture: When God Allows Trump to Overturn the Election, Atheists Will Convert to Christianity."
That'll do it for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. During a recent video, a recent live video filmed in his car, pro-Trump pastor Todd, is it Caneto?
Yeah, Canado, I believe.
Caneto, yeah, said that if Christians pray hard enough, President Trump will achieve his goal of overturning the 2020 election results. And when that finally does happen, atheists will be so amazed that they'll have no choice but to acknowledge God exists. Quote, I do believe we're going to see God move on our behalf, Caneto says, in a video flagged by the friendly atheist Hermanent Mehta. Yeah. quote, I believe it's going to be such a miracle, sign and wonder as it takes place that the people that even the godless, even the atheists are going to look and say, wow, look at the God that they serve. Look at that God they serve, he continued. Because, quote, because people are going to say it was impossible. They're going to say there's no way. They're going to say, absolutely not. It will never happen. And then what God does when he moves, they're going to say, look and say, wow. And I believe it's going to bring people to salvation. According to the Metha Kaneto and those who believe his words are a lost cause. Quote, the more pressing question is how many of their followers will even accept that they're being played as these same religious leaders, by these same religious leaders. So we're going to go to the actual clip here, YouTube video. So let me share that. Oops, hang on. Sorry. Need to have it spooled up here. Here we go. Should see that now.
So back to the question, is Trump going to win? I think that as we pray, something happens. God responds. And when I asked the Lord, what should we do? Should we stop praying? Should we accept our defeat and move on to the next thing? He says, absolutely not. Opposite. Pray, pray, pray. Pray without ceasing. Believe, have faith, trust. So that's what I'm getting from God. And so that gives me encouragement in my spirit, because if the Lord is saying that, that means it's not done. You see, you understand me, saints? That means it's not done, because if it were done, then I think God would be telling me, you know what, just move on, or move on to the next thing. You've entered into a new season, and everybody needs to be prepared for the persecution. Now, does that mean there won't be tough times ahead? No. Does that mean there won't be persecution? No. But what it means is simply this. He has not told me to stop praying. And because of that, I believe that he's moving on our behalf in some way, shape, or form. And I believe that this is a war that we're going to have to pray this through until the very end here. But I do believe we're going to see God move on our behalf. And I think it's going to be such a miracle and sign and wonder. Now get this, because this is important. Get this, because this is important. I believe it's going to be such a miracle, sign, and wonder as this takes place, that the people, that even the godless, even the atheists, are going to look and say, wow, look at the God that they serve. Look at the God that they serve. Because people are going to say it was impossible. They're going to say there was no way. They're going to say, absolutely not. It'll never happen. And then what God does when he moves, they're going to see and look and say, wow. And I believe it's going to bring people to salvation.
Okay. Yes, I bet so.
I think he's right. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath. Okay. So the
try really hard.
Yeah. So the next one, the next crazy story is from the Hill, written by Dominique Mastrangio, and it's titled "Clip of Pastor Laughing at Quote Media Said Joe Biden's President Goes Viral." And this is, I'm going to show you a short video clip from one of our favorite televangelists, Kenneth Copeland, mocking national media outlets for declaring Joe Biden the winner of the 2020 presidential election, and that clip has gone viral. Now, here's what's interesting: this clip we're going to see is actually during a service at the Lord's Host Church in Omaha, Nebraska, where Pastor Kenneth Copeland referenced the election, declaring, "The media said what? The media said Joe Biden is president," before exploding into uproarious laughter. Members of the congregation are seen egging Copeland on, clapping and standing as they laugh together in apparent mockery of Biden's projected victory. Quote, laugh and here's the thing. This all was part of an earlier discussion he had about laughter, and quoted here a little bit. So laughter is a deterrent to pain. Copeland explained at one point during Sunday's sermon, your physical brain and body cannot tell the difference between a put-on laugh and a real belly laugh. And so he had an earlier on, before he got into this part about Biden, he was talking about how laughter can help you cope with pain, right? And so then he spent a full minute leading the audience in a demonstrative of quote, put on laughter. The Associated Press said that, well, quote, the Associated Press said that Joe Biden is president. Ha, he continued, laughing again. Yeah, that's right. He's going to be the president and Mickey Mouse is going to be king. So let's go to this interesting video of Kenneth.
The media said what? The media said Joe Biden's president. Ha 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 ha
So yeah, so it's having some fun times in the Copeland ministry. So yeah, if something you don't like, just start laughing and you'll be fine.
I laughed like that, but it was because Trump lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the old ha you lost.
Told you so.
So, well, there's my crazy stories for this week.
Oh, that was certainly qualified, Tim. Well done.
Oh yeah.
I have to mention this because I just recently submitted a opinion piece to the Kearney Hub, basically along these lines, where I described well, shall we say it again, that religious beliefs have consequences. Using that theme because here we have people that prophesized, quote unquote, prophesized that Trump was going to win. Of course, when he didn't, then they had to come up with all kinds of wild and crazy excuses why he didn't win.
Yep.
And I had to use out of a list of 12 so-called prophets, none the least of which was Pat Robertson, and then the quote-unquote spiritual advisor for Trump right now, that bubble-headed bleach blonde that he runs out there once in a while. We're two of these individuals, but the one person said that the reason Trump lost was because lying spirits had occupied the personas of these wonderful prophetic voices of the United States.
Well, yeah.
You gotta watch out for those lying spirits. That's Lying, of course, and that's not lying down, but
yeah. So I wonder, how do they justify the fact that all these millions of prayers are going unanswered? Because the nightly, daily prayers by all these followers.
Sure, that's easy. I mean, God just saying no.
Yeah. Right. Maybe they should Maybe they should listen to their God.
Exactly. They
God-
need to listen to their
Obviously,
God. I think that's
obviously
the
God
big
says
one.
you're
Yeah.
whacked. No,
Yeah,
no
God-
way.
God's just saying no.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So deal with it.
Yeah, kind of like the Discover commercial. Yeah.
Right. How strong is your faith? How strong is your faith? God's saying no.
Well, I mean, we had a president that said just say no. So I mean,
No, that's true.
Right.
Oh,
oh wow. Well, thanks again, Tim. That was definitely entertaining and definitely qualifies for our crazy stories of the week.
yeah. Oh, you bet.
All right. Well, that will wrap us up for this week. If you have enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is a big difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Tracy and Tim saying so long.
Yeah.